So I wanted to go back to this one topic because I only really see this operation one way at this point because just there's so many discrepancies with other theories that it really seems like there's really only one way to explain what's happening out here. I think that we entertain other theories because we can't prove one way or another exactly what's happening. If you had enough technology, you could make things happen. We know that. I think that it's the difference between faith and faith and proof. Or if you don't have proof, why wouldn't God provide proof of his existence? I think that and people ask these questions, and when you really think about it, it really doesn't even come down to having proof, because you really can't really have proof in it. You can't really, there's no way God can prove himself, I think, is the overall point. So it really comes back to you just having to have faith. I always used to think it was interesting that people who didn't believe in God would automatically say that God hasn't provided proof. I was like, do you think that God thinks that providing proof is going to convince anybody? Because the people who don't choose not to believe in God wouldn't believe in God regardless of whatever happened, because there's always another explanation. So that's why I wanted to cover this. Okay, so when it comes to God, you either have to have faith or that's it. There's no other way. There's no other way you can do it. People either choose to believe in him or have it in them to believe in God, or they don't. So proof, there is no proof. There's no amount of proof that God could provide that could make people believe in him, regardless of how extreme the things that happen are. No matter what happens, you can always find an explanation based off of, I don't know, you can always come up with something. You can either say it's technology or the Illuminati or just anything, or aliens, or just... So I used to tell people this. Basically, you have to have faith that God exists if you're going to believe in God. There's nothing that could happen that could convince you. Because the truth is, with technology being what it is, I mean, there's no way for us to say with 100% certainty that these people aren't using tech against us. We don't know how much tech, humanity has available to it. We don't know. I mean, humanity can have all sorts of technology. How would we know? How do we know that if God did something, that it wasn't the gang stalkers because of technology? So, the thing is, I don't really see what God could possibly do that could convince people, regardless of how extreme stuff happens. I mean, how extreme the stuff that happens is. You guys understand what I'm saying? If all of this wouldn't be enough to convince you, you can't really be convinced. So what would it take? What would God have to do? No matter what God did, I can guarantee you the people would figure out some sort of explanation for it. Even if it goes against science, even if it goes against logic, people will come up with an explanation for it. If you ever dealt with scientists are not looking for evidence of whether God exists. They already made up their mind. So people, when you deal with people like that, when you deal with people who have that type of mindset, it's not about the evidence. They've already made up their mind. When something happens, regardless of how extreme it is or supernatural, they're going to explain it away somehow. I mean, it's going to always come down to that. So if you've ever studied the supernatural, believe me when I tell you, science will figure out some sort of way to explain supernatural events. I've been hearing stuff about frequencies and different, all this other stuff, dude. Some sort of, I don't know, metaphysical, I don't know. I've heard all sorts of there's different frequencies, and the frequencies, they're starting to say that science can explain supernatural stuff. They're okay, there's these frequencies, and we resonate at a certain frequency, I don't know, the 6 or was it 5 gigahertz, or I mean, I was I'm not a scientist. I'm just saying they have Like they're talking about frequencies and stuff. I mean, I think that like I was like, okay, so what can science do? Like, is there nothing that science cannot explain at this point? I don't know. I don't think. Well, I don't know what if you're God, if you're omnipotent, what could you do? I mean, regardless of what happens, they say a frequency. I was like, okay, a frequency, and you know, I guess that makes. Does that make sense? I don't have a doctorate, you know, I don't. I don't have a doctorate. I don't know frequencies. You know, that's why I said. So here's the thing. Here's what I want to say. God, it has to be an act of faith, because there's nothing that God could do that could like get these people to just like chill out. Like there's nothing he could do. Like I was like, no matter what happens, dude, I'm telling you, they will always explain it away. It just doesn't matter. If they can't explain it away, they'll just say aliens. I'm telling you guys how it is. They'll say aliens did it. I'm like, okay, you know what? It doesn't even have to make sense. It's just their explanation. I don't know. Can you prove that aliens didn't do it? No, you can't prove aliens didn't do it. You can't prove that it's not an unknown science. Can't prove that. You can't prove that God exists. You can't prove that he doesn't exist. At the end, everything is an act of faith. Even science is an act of faith. Their science, at least, because their science is kind of like not really a verified science, or not all of it. I mean, I don't know. Like they're saying that, like now they're saying that like stuff that happens that they can't explain is explainable, and I'm like, okay, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, the point is that God is an act of faith, because no amount of evidence can prove he exists, because I'm telling you, no matter what happens, it can be explained away by people who need to explain it away. That's why I don't think of it like that. I said it's really just whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it. It's really simple. It's like people, you can't prove God exists. You can't prove that he doesn't exist. And you can't prove that their science is real, or whether it makes sense, or whether that is really like that. I mean, you don't really know that. And if it is like that, how far could you take it? So nothing really can be proven. Like when they start talking about resonance frequencies and all this stuff, like they start talking like that. I mean, like they say that you can just do all this stuff, and they might have like some sort of model that demonstrates it, and we don't know how accurate it is. We don't know if it's been tampered with, or we just don't know a whole lot. So I think that everything in the end is an act of faith. You can either choose to believe there's a God, or you don't want to believe there's a God, and regardless of what happens, you'll figure out a way to explain it. And if you can't